Hey friends, Patrick here, and this video that you're going to see here is actually part of the .NET Web Academy. It is a challenge in there, meaning I wanted the students to build a tic-tac-toe game with Blazor and SignalR, and this here is the result. This is already the end result of a version of the game that I made. So as you can see here, I have two windows open, and we can enter a name here and name of the room that we're going to create. And then as you can see here, the clients are connected to one hub of SignalR. I know buzzwords already. You will learn what all that is in a couple of minutes. And then here we can enter another name, like Spider-Man, for instance. And we can see that there's a new room that we can join. And now the creator of the room can start the game. I know you don't see the second board here, but when I enter or click on this cell here, you see that it changes here as well. And same thing here, it's Spider-Man's turn, and now we see what is actually happening. And when we are done, we can see that the game is over. Winner is X, in that case Batman. So this is the end result that we're going to build in the next couple of, well, hours. So I hope you like it. If so, don't forget to hit the like button, maybe subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to check out the .NET Web Academy. Links in the video description. And now enjoy the challenge and building a tic-tac-toe game with Blazor WebAssembly in .NET 8 and SignalR. Hey friends, Patrick here, and welcome to my solution of the very first challenge, the tic-tac-toe game with Blazor WebAssembly in my case, and also SignalR. So let's already create the project. I already told you I want to use Blazor WebAssembly, so for that we choose the Blazor web app template here. Let me give this a creative name like Blazor tic-tac-toe, and we hit next. Target framework .NET 8, no authentication, but again interactive render mode then in this case would be WebAssembly. We could also choose auto, but I really want to use WebAssembly here because regarding SignalR, it does make sense actually to use WebAssembly, because then we will install the client package of SignalR and you will see how you can communicate with the server. So with a SignalR hub to be more precise, but again, you will see that in the next couple of lectures. Now interactivity location per page component, I just leave it at that because I really like it like that, and include sample pages, why not? And while this thing is creating on my other screen, there it is, I want to tell you, short disclaimer, this application that we're going to build, of course, does not claim to be complete. So you can do a lot more with that, of course, but I think it really gives you a great foundation regarding SignalR and communicating then with the server from a WebAssembly client application in this case, because it's not only about an example chat application, for instance, where you have like two events, for instance. You see, it's all about events, or a lot about events with SignalR. You will, or we will together build or make use of groups because we want to build or create rooms. My idea here is that when a user connects or accesses our page or web application, then the user will be directly connected to the SignalR hub. And then the user has the option to either create a new room, or the user will see a list of rooms and then join one of these rooms. And these rooms then will be groups in SignalR jargon, let's say. All right. So again, one step after another, this is a little introduction. And the very first thing already I want to create is the hub. This is a game, so let's create a game hub. And for that, we create a new folder here on our server application, or project rather. And again, we call this hubs. And here now we add a new item, and this is then the game hub. All right, there it is. And this thing now inherits from hub, and with a control and period, you will see the suggestion Microsoft ASP.NET Core SignalR. So this is the using directive we have to add, the reference we need. And as you can see, you don't have to install something, right? In the past there, well, it's some time ago, but you had to install something. But not here. SignalR is there out of the box when you create this kind of application, choosing this project template, the Blazor web app template. And regarding the client, we will have to install a client NuGet package, but that's everything we have to install regarding SignalR. So you see there's a lot built-in SignalR stuff already. Now, what's next? SignalR is all about events in essence. So what we will have is we will have an OnConnected event, for instance. So when the user connects to our application, something should happen. Then we can add custom events, of course, meaning when the user creates a room, something should happen. When the user joins the room, something should happen. And then, of course, later then the moves that the users will be able to make, adding an X or an O to the board in essence. And the very first thing that I want to implement is the OnConnected event. This method there, I want to do something. And when this is done, I will already or want to already show you what happens to the application with a little console write line, of course. So you see kind of how this works. All right. So first, again, our OnConnected async method. For that, we write public override. And then already we get the suggestion here, OnConnected async. You already see the on disconnected async. And again, I told you this application is not complete. This thing we will not implement, all right? Of course, I think you will know what to do when you implemented all the other stuff and followed this course. But in my case, I didn't, so this is not complete. But again, I'm sure on disconnect, it's up to you what you want to do. You can remove a room, for instance. You can write a message in the application on the client. Whatever you want to do there, you can do it here on disconnected async. But now first OnConnected async. That's the one. And the only thing I want to do here first is console write line. And then I want to call these guys here and girls that connect. These are players. So I would say player with ID, and then this is already some of the magic in SignalR. Each user, in our case player, has a unique ID, and we can get to that ID like that. So first string interpolation here, and then it's context, because we have the hub. So you can see there, gets or sets the hub caller context. So the caller is the user that was just connected here. And then connection ID. All right, and then connected. So player with ID context, connection ID connected. This also means, we will make use of that, when a user still has his or her session, then the connection ID will also still be the same. This means with the help of the connection ID, we can differentiate the users and see whose user's turn it is, for instance, when playing the game. All right. Hope this makes already sense. So connection ID, very, very important. And to see the connection ID, we can actually do one thing. We have to already add the client at a page, for instance, or we just remove the home page and so on, and only use one single page here on the client, and then connect to the SignalR hub, and then make sure that we see this little message here. So I'd say let's already move on with the client implementations in the next lecture. All right, now for the client, I told you already, we need another package. So here in the dependencies, we will see this one, and we go to manage NuGet packages. In the client project, we go to browse, and then for instance, enter SignalR client. That's the one, and it's not SignalR Common, it is Microsoft ASP.NET Core SignalR Client, currently version 8.0.2, 44 million downloads. This definitely is the one, and with that, we will be able to make use of the so-called Hub Connection Builder. And with that, then we will again be able to connect to our SignalR hub. So let's close that, and then I want to clean up a little bit, because we have the example stuff here regarding the components. For instance, you see the layout, main layout, the nav menu, and also then the home page. And what I like to do is create only one page for now, which will be the lobby. So we add a new Razor component. That is our lobby here. And I was thinking about using the page route lobby as well, but actually this is the only page that I want the user to go. So what I decided then was to simply steal this route here, put it there like that. All right, so here we have our lobby now, and then we can actually remove the home page. We can remove the counter page as well. And then also weather, nothing we need. Nav menu, don't need that. And then regarding the main layout, the only thing I want to do is actually remove the sidebar here and only use the body here. So nothing will be there actually apart from here, the lobby text. So let's try that real quick. We start the application and see if cleaning up actually worked. Yep, there we are. Great, right? So here we only have the lobby now. Let's also already open the console because we will definitely make use of that. And this is our result. You probably already noticed that we don't see anything regarding WebAssembly, so no console output that WebAssembly is used. Well, that's because we did not make use of the WebAssembly render mode for now, but that's what we will definitely do next. And also we have to, again, add some SignalR boilerplate stuff before we can actually communicate to our GameHub. So let's first start with the render modes. All right, so here now, again, we have add render modes. Maybe you already know that by now. And also maybe you already know about this little pitfall or trap with .NET 8, because if I would now say render mode interactive WebAssembly, then this thing would be rendered twice, first on the server and then also on the client. The problem with that is that when we write our onInitialized async method here and we will connect to our GameHub, then we will see an output that is not nice, because we will actually see 2 times that the player with a certain ID has been connected or has connected to the GameHub, and this is not what we want. So we actually have to disable pre-rendering to only connect once and render this only on the client. But I will first show you how, or what the behavior is that we don't want, and after that then the actual behavior that we want. So for now this is already WebAssembly. When we now restart this, and there it is, it's rebuilding. This is what I was talking about. Now we see .NET loaded 5 megabytes. This is only in development. Bear with me here. All right, I know this is big, but when you build this actually and deploy it to Azure, for instance, and this is way smaller. But as you can see now, this is the WebAssembly stuff that you typically see in the console. And now regarding the connection to our GameHub, first, a little bit of boilerplate code here in the program CS on the server. So for instance, if you don't want to use Blazor here, the Blazor web app template, you can also just build a web API, for instance, or use the web API template. It's pretty much the same stuff. So now in the program CS, and by the way, I prepared this a little, so I'm looking at the other screen. And here now, first thing is to use the SignalR services. So let's add this one here, builder services, add SignalR. As you can see, add SignalR services to the specified iService connection. Great stuff. And then there's only one additional thing, and this is new. Haven't seen that before actually, because before we saw the counter here, the counter page that I now deleted. But now they decided to use the imports, which does make sense because you typically won't delete the imports file. So it's a bit more safer. Because, for instance, we need the assembly. And for instance, if you delete the counter page now, then we wouldn't be able to use Blazor WebAssembly. I think you learned this already in the Blazor Jumpstart course in the .NET Web Academy. But now they changed it. We haven't really checked that out. But still, interesting stuff. Anyways, what we have to add here, no, not really, well, it doesn't really matter where you add it, but you can add it here, is, let's call it the endpoint for the GameHub, for our SignalR hub. So here we have to make sure that this thing is registered with map hub. And this is not the GameHub, this is our beautiful class. And here now we also have to specify the route for that. Let's just call that GameHub. And with that, we are done. And of course, this is not known in the dictionary here of Visual Studio. So this is the boilerplate code we need to be able to connect the client to the server. And now in the server, again, I already told you about our uninitialized async. So protected override, and then uninitialized async, that's the one. And here now, don't forget the async keyword. We actually don't need the base method here, but what we want to do is now again start a connection to our hub. For that, we add a little member here, or a little variable, the hub connection could be null. So now hub connection is the name. We use this using directive and move that to our imports Blazor file, and that's the one. Perfect. And now here, first we say hub connection is new hub connection builder, actually. That's the one. And here now we can specify the URL, which is the GameHub. Just enter that on the server, right? So with URL. And then here we can just say navigation manager, which is not injected actually. So we have to inject that one. And then to absolute URL, and then dash, not dash, slash, and then GameHub. And then here we call build. So with that we have our hub connection. And here real quick, add inject navigation manager, and then this method should be known, hopefully. Nope, give me a sec. That's the one. All right. So not URL, URI it is. And then we just call await. That's why we need the async keyword and the task return type, hub connection, and then start async. And that's everything. With that, this is the complete boilerplate to connect to your SignalR hub. And then you're free to do whatever you want to do with that. So here now we restart the application. You won't see a big change here. That's what you can see. But, you know, see that? This is in the console. So player with ID so-and-so connected, player with ID so-and-so connected. Let me refresh this. And again, 2 connections. Maybe you can see it. 2 connections. So every time it is first rendered on the server and then on the client. So to change that, because I really only want to use the client here, we can just, or we have to, it's the way in .NET 8, we have to create a new instance of the render mode. So new interactive WebAssembly render mode. And then here, as you can actually see, there's a second way to create a new instance of the interactive WebAssembly render mode. And here we can set pre-rendering to true or to false. By default, this is true. As you can see here, default value is true. And we say now, nope, don't want that. That's it. Now let's restart this one more time. And also open the console. There it is. And you see now only one line, player with ID so-and-so connected. Let's try that one more time. And here it is. All right, so now we have our connection ready. And with that, we can actually already start with some events, for instance. So let's play around with that next. All right, now what I wanna do when a player connects to our game, I first want to send the current available rooms to that new player. And for that, we need some more entities. Now we won't store anything in the database in this course, but still let's create a separate project for that so that the server and the client project both can make use of them. And well, maybe we can have this a tiny bit cleaner. Of course, this is no clean architecture, not the best architecture at all. I already told you this is not complete and maybe not always the best practice, but my goal with this course and with this challenge is for you to understand SignalR more together with WebAssembly, Blazor WebAssembly, and also to be able to do a bit more with SignalR regarding the groups, for instance, so that you understand what's the connection ID, what can I do with the groups, how can I put a user into a group and only send messages to a specific group, stuff like that. So anyways, we have our server project here, we have our client project. Now let's create another one. So we add a new project, which is only a class library. We call this now Blazor TicTacToe shared, actually. Of course, .NET 8 it is. Don't need that class here. All right, but now again, I told you I want to create rooms, so then send these rooms to the player. But additionally, we will have two more entities in which, or models, let's say the game room, the player, and also the actual tic-tac-toe game with the board and the current different states, like whose turn it is and who the winner is, or maybe it's currently draw, and so on. So this is what we're going to do. So let's create these new items real quick. First, the game room. Let's make this public. Then we will also have the player. All right, also public, of course. And then we will also have new item, which is the TicTacToe game. All right, so this as well. These are the ones, and now we will add more to them, of course, later, but for now these are the basics. And now back to the server and the GameHub down. Where is it? Here. And what I want to do again, first we have a list of rooms. So here now, private static read only list of game rooms. Need another reference here. Come on, that's the one. And we call this rooms, and this is now first simply a new list of rooms. So this would be an empty room list. And now what I want to do, I actually want to send these rooms to the player that was just connecting. So how would I do that? Again, an asynchronous method. And here now I can call clients, and these are, you don't see it here, now you see it, gets or sets an object that can be used to invoke methods on the clients connected to this hub. So all clients, you can do something with all the clients here, but you can also say, I just want the caller. And this gets a proxy, as you can see there, that can be used to invoke on the calling client and receive results. So this means that only the user that just connected will receive the following with the send async method. And in SignalR, maybe you already saw my SignalR chat tutorials on YouTube. As you can see here, the very first thing that you put here where in the send async method is a string. And this is the way to know what actually happened there. So when our hub is sending something to a client, then the client can listen to a certain method, as it says here, string method. And our method here is now simply rooms. And then we can add whatever we want to add here, a cancellation token or some objects, for instance, right? And as many as you want, actually. And here again, what I want to do is I want to send the rooms there, and actually I want to order them already. So maybe we can add something already to the game room. That would be the following. First thing is an ID, but this will be a string because I want to use a GUID for that. So here now, the room ID, all right, and then the string room name. All right, let's leave it at that. By the way, why a string? Well, we will use GUIDs again because with a GUID I can make sure that these room IDs are really unique. Probability is really high that they are unique. And for instance, if you would use an integer here and increment it manually, maybe this wouldn't work when a room will be removed because no user is there anymore. could just be the case, or the probability is higher that we will have the same ID for a room. So that's why a GUID will make more sense here, but this is done when we actually create a new room. Anyways, these are already some properties of the game room. And when we now go back, I can order them. So order by, and then for the room name. All right. And that way we can make sure that they are ordered all the time. All right. And I think actually we don't need that. So let's remove it. Okay. So let's save that now. And with that, we are able to go back to the client and then react to this method here, to that call. So let's do that next real quick. So here now in the lobby, we already have our hub connection, but here now I already told you it's all about events. So now here we can add handlers or listeners, you name it. That will do something when the event in the end is fired. So let's add a handler here. So that would be with what's done with hub connection, and then on, and here's the function. You can now see it actually. It says registers a handler that will be invoked when the hub method with the specified method name, see, a bit confusing maybe at first, is invoked, and it returns the value returned by handler to server if the server requests a result. So in the end, you know it, we here have our method name. This is rooms. In the send async method, we have the method name here only called string method. All right. And here now it's the same thing. So when we get this event here, rooms, and we actually already can define the type here. So we want to get a list of game rooms. And with that, I noticed that I forgot one thing. We have to add a dependency actually, because here now this will not work. I try to press Control and period, but here now in the dependencies we just add another project reference, and that would be shared. We hit OK, and actually we can then, this was done automatically, we could remove the shared one here because it's already here then in the client. But anyways, I leave this up to you. It's not bad to have it there. So now we have our game room class. And now we can do something with that. So here we see we have a room list, and with the room list now we can do some stuff. And the only thing that I want to do here, and I think then it's enough with console right lining everything, but here now still what I want to do is, again, string interpolation please. So here we got rooms, and let's just display the count. So here this would be count, and then room list, and then the count, like that, I hope. All right, let's test that. All right, so here now we restart the application, and there it is. Is it restarting? Yep, now it is. And we got rooms. Isn't that nice? Count 0. Unfortunately, but now we are going to create some rooms. And here in the console, again, in the terminal, we see the user that has been connected. All right, and with that, I'd say the next step would be to finally create actual rooms so that we can see a count of 1 or 2 there maybe. So let's do exactly that in the next lecture. All right, now my idea here is that we're currently in the lobby, and actually we will never leave the lobby even when we create or join a room, because when we create or join a room, I only want to, well, display another component here that represents this room with the tic-tac-toe board, the whole game logic there in essence. So I don't want to navigate the user back from the lobby. I only want to show, display, use another component for the actual room. So the logic then for creating and joining a room will be in the lobby, but as soon as we got a room, then we will show another component, and there we will have all the other game logic stuff. I hope you get the idea. I think you will when you see how we implement all that. So let's go back to, there it is, Visual Studio. And again, here the lobby, and here now we will be able to create a room and later then also join a room. And the actual method to create a room is simple. So what we'll do is simply private async and then task create room like that. And here we will make a call. So first, if the hub connection is null, then we simply return. Again, not complete, so we could do a bunch of stuff here. We could display an error message, we could throw an exception, stuff like that, but I don't. And here now what I want to do is I call await hub connection, invoke async now, because with that we actually, let's say we make a call to the hub, or as it states here, invokes a hub method on the server using the specified method name. Because when you compare this to a typical web API, for instance, you always make an HTTP web service call, right? A post call, a get call, put, whatever it is. And here we already have this connection to the server. It's there all the time, hopefully. This means we can actually already call the method that is available there because we already have this connection established. And that's why we call an invoke async method and not something like an HTTP post, JSON, get, whatever it is, right? No fetch, something like that. So here, this is why we call invoke async. With that, when I scroll a bit further up, then you see again that we can make use of the method name here that you want to call. And we can also actually already write here our result that we want to get back. And this will be a game room then in the end. Now the method name not available yet in the GameHub, but we will do that of course in a minute. Here now what I want to put there is create room. So again, you see kind of an identifier similar to the send async with rooms. Now it's the other way around. You want to invoke something, and this method then is, or the name of the method is create room. And this is really the actual name of the method that we will implement on the server in our GameHub. It's not like that, which is really just an identifier. But here now, this will be the actual method name. And of course, also we can add some more parameters here, some objects. And what I want to do is I want to send a room name and a player name actually. So the name of the room and the name of the player that creates that room. But for that, we have to add something here to our component. So first the player name, and this will be a private string. Then the player name, and by default, let's just say it's an empty string. Then the current room name, so private string again, current room name, which is string empty, and then the actual current room, so private game room, could be null in the beginning at least. And this is then the current room like that. And what we will also want to display actually is a list of rooms. So private list game room rooms. And again, this is a new empty list, and we will make use of that here now. Actually, it's not that much, so what we can do, well, let's do that in a minute. All right, so here now, create a room. Again, we added now the current room name, like that maybe, and also we add the player name like that, and we get something back. So what we can do now is we can set actually the current room to the result of that call. All right, so far the code block of the client, but now here I want to set the player name and the current room name. So first thing, an input fields for the player name and the current room name, because when you want to create a room, we want to give this thing a name. So we need 2 inputs and then also a button for actually creating then a room. And with the list of rooms, what we also want to have is an unordered list with list items, and each list item then would be again the name of the room that currently is open, and also a button then again to join this room. So let's do that here. First one again, in input, we bind this to the player name. And of course we can add a placeholder like your name. All right. And then let me just copy and paste that because I'm lazy. So here now another input for the current room name. Placeholder here would then be the room name like that. And then here we have a button, and on clicking that button, we call a function called create room, right? And here now also create room as a text. So here now we will then use this function here to create this room. All right. With that now, we are covering the list of the rooms later. With that now, let's jump to our GameHub, because so far, as you can see here, we only have the OnConnected async method here. And now what I want to add is the create a room method. So already maybe a quick recap here on the, or in the OnConnected async method, we have this call. We use the send async method with the method name rooms, and the lobby here subscribes in the end to this rooms method name. And as soon as we get this thing, then we just write this into the console. Now it is the other way around. We call this invoke async method with the method name create room. So there has to be a create room method on the server in the GameHub, and also this thing should take 2 string arguments, the current room name and the player name. So let's do that. Back to the GameHub here, and now here we can create our method for that. So public async task, and we return the game room, the new one, right? Name has to be create room now, and regarding the arguments, we have string name and string player name like that. And now regarding the body here, first thing, the room ID, already told you I want to use a GUID here. So this thing is new GUID, and then to string, and then our room. So var room, and here now in the game room, we can actually add a constructor where we set the room ID and the room name. So public game room ID and room name. That's correct. IntelliCode. Wow, this is great. So room ID is the room ID and room name is the room name. So back here now, we call this a constructor with, again, the name and the room ID. But actually the other way around, right? So room ID, and now here the name. All right, when we have this room now, what we can do is we add this to our rooms list like that. And then the next thing that I want to do is send now the new list, or it's not the new list, but the updated list of rooms to all the clients, and then return the room. There's more to do in this method actually, like adding the player to the room, stuff like that, but we will do this later, of course. But now here, what I want to do again is await, actually similar to this thing here, but let me really type this in so you see the difference. We've got clients, so far it's the same, but now we say all, and then send async, and again, rooms, and then, well, this is the same, so let me just copy that. The rooms ordered by their names. All right, like that. And then here we can return the room. All right, that's it for creating the room for now. Now let's test that real quick, because what I now expect is that we get an updated list of the rooms, because now when we again have a look at the lobby here, we should see this this line in the console, right? So let's test that real quick. We restart the application. There we are. It is restarting. We see the new beautiful UI. And here we see we got rooms. So now when I enter a name, like my name, my new room, and I hit create room, we see we get rooms count 1. And my new room 2, we get rooms count 2. But now what's really interesting actually is what happens if we open a second tab or window and a third one and so on. So when another user joins our party here in the lobby and creates a room, what happens then? So here now I have a second window open. Maybe I can put them next to each other like that. We see the console here. Let me make this a bit bigger. So count is 2. Again, now I can create here the third room, for instance, and now here, name is actually not that important for now. And here now, this should be room 4 maybe. So create, and you can see other window, right? But we get also the call, the event, if you want, that another room has been created. Same thing here when we open the console now with F12. We see the logs already. You can see them here as well, that this already happened here, right? I hope you can still see that. Yep, we're good. So now what about room 5? Create, and we see count 5, and same thing here. Isn't that great? So now this already happens, and of course this also works with every instance you now open of Chrome, your browser, another tab, whatever it is. All right, so now back to Visual Studio. This generally works, but what I now want to do is already add a little bit more UI to getting the rooms, and then also add the players to our game rooms. So a lot more we have to implement here. So this thing is actually getting a game one step after another. So again, I would say creating a room in general works, but now let's also add some UI and maybe also already the players and maybe a bit more logic. So let's do that next. All right, so creating rooms in general, the foundation works, but now I think there's more to it. So when we have a look, for instance, here in our lobby, there should be a list of the available rooms. There should be a button to be able to join that room. And maybe on server side, when we create a new room, we can already add a player to this room. So I would say we now move into that direction, adding more UI and then also adding more logic for joining a room then. So meaning players, and then maybe also already doing a bit more with this thing here, the TicTacToeGame, the actual game that we want to play here. But one step after another. So we've got, I know I'm repeating myself, but we've got creating rooms covered in general, but now let's do more here. We display a list and also a button to be able to join these rooms. So here now what we can do, simply H3 to add this header for the rooms, and then already told you that an unordered list. And here now with a for each, we just go over all the rooms. So room in our rooms list, it shall be. And here, relatively simple, really. We just add the room name, typo here. So now room name it is. And then we add a button again where we say on click. And this function is not there yet. We want to join this room. We need an argument here. So we do it with a lambda expression. So join room. And then here the room ID. This shall be it. And then here we say join room. Now let's add the method real quick. So also down here we write private async task. join room with the room ID. And here now, again, we check for the hub connection. So again, we can actually copy that one. And here now, what you want to do is we want to invoke again another method. So var joined room, this is the one that we get back then, await hub connection, invoke async. Again, we get the room back, the game room, like that. The name of the method then will be join room. And let me put this in a new line. Other arguments will be the room ID and again the player name, like that. And then we also check if we are actually able to join the room. So is it null or not? Because could be the case that the room is already full, meaning 2 players are there already. So in that case, well, you can do whatever you want to do, but I just write something into the console like the room is already full, something like that. So here now, again, we check if joined room is not null. All right. If this is the case, we set our current room to the joined room. And otherwise, again, we just say something like console write line, and then room is full or does not exist. And here now you can already see that there are a lot more ways to play around with that. For instance, you could really add a toast notification. You could change the logic in a way where you just don't display the room if it's full, or you add a little lock icon, something like that. So this can really develop into something really beautiful in the end, right? With great graphics, although it's just a tic-tac-toe game, but still, you know, buttons can look really, really nice. So there's a lot you can use to improve that kind of game. But now I already implemented the joined room method. What I actually wanted to start here is show you the representation of our rooms. So maybe we can try that real quick. When we open our or rebuild our application, here we are. We set room 1, create room. Nothing is happening. Now, why is that? Let's have a look on rooms. Of course, we don't set our list here. So we have a beautiful rooms list. But here now, this is the rooms list. Let's try that one more time, maybe. All right, room 1, create room. There it is. This is room 1, room 2, create, room 3, create, double click the room 2, and so on. Now we can join, but we get an error here. And what does this say? It says, when I am able to scroll, failed to invoke join room due to an error on the server. Hub exception method does not exist. Now this is nice, right? We get exactly what's happening here. The terminal is not telling us what is happening, but here in the console we see this method is missing, and we know that, so we have to add this thing first. But since we're now going on the server to the server anyways, let's also complete the create room method here. Meaning I want to add players, for instance, to that room, and then also implementing the join room method. So again, creating a room and joining a room in one lecture. Let's do that next. All right, so what do we have here? In the create room method, again, we have the room ID, we have the room, we add the room to the list. Now we need players. All right, we already have the player name here, but you can see that this thing is not used yet. So let's do that next. For that, I want to do a little bit more here in the player class. Currently, it looks really empty. So what we can add is simply the ID and the name of the player. And to be more exact, this is the ConnectionId. So again, a string, and here ConnectionId. Why a string? Well, maybe you can have a look here again. Player ID with, right? So this is no integer or something like that. This is a crazy interesting ID. So string should work here. And the other one is also a string. And this shall be the name of the player. And again, we can create a constructor with exactly the same parameters actually. So string connection ID and string name. And here now we set the connection ID to connection ID and the name to the name, and that's it. And since we have the latest version of C#, actually, this is the first time I see the suggestion here. Visual Studio suggests to use the new primary constructor. So when I go to show potential fixes, which is not really a fix, but here you can see that or it suggests to do exactly that, use a primary constructor. So here you see we would then have, or it would remove the constructor here and then add this to the class. So one more thing we can learn here is that, well, we can combine the properties and the constructor with the class definition now. Why not? Let's see if it works. All right. Anyways, in the game room there, we can actually also use the primary constructor here. So let's do that real quick. Use primary constructor, nice. But what we also have here now, or what I want to add, is a list of players. So prop list player and then players. And this is actually a new list of players. And I also want to add a game here. So public and then TicTacToeGame. This is a game. Like that, get set, of course. And this then again is a new TicTacToe game. All right. Now this means when we go back to our GameHub, what I can do here is I can create a new player. So var new player is a new player with not the room ID here. This is actually the context connection ID, but the player name. This is correct. And we can add this player now to the room. For that, we need another method. So let's go back to the game room. And here now we add a new method. And this method now should be called try to add a player, or try add player. So public bool, notebook bool, try add player. Why try? Well, there are cases where it's simply not possible. So player, new player. And here now we first check the player's count of the current room. And if you already have a player with that connection ID, all right? So here now, if players count, that's the one, is below 2, and the any player, not like that, but almost, if there's any player where the player connection ID equals the new player connection ID. So again, let's put this in a new line here. So again, if we have less than 2 players and there's no player with the given connection ID, then we add this player to the room. So what we say here is now players, add the new player. What I also want to do is, yes, we can actually already return true, and otherwise we return false. But what I also want to do is I already want to set the players or the IDs of the players in the actual TicTacToeGame, because in the TicTacToeGame, the logic there is that we have a player X and the player O, right, with these two symbols, the X symbol and the O symbol. And for each symbol, we set a corresponding player. And I just noticed this little error here. All right, so we check if the player count now after adding the player is 1. So players count is 1, and in that case we set the player X, and else if, Jesus, I have a new keyboard by the way, so sometimes it's still a bit hard to find the right keys. Players count is 2. Then we set the ID for player O. So let's add that real quick to the TicTacToeGame here. So we also have a bit more in the actual class. So here now, public string could be null at the beginning. So player X ID, it's a property, so get set, of course. And here now again, player O ID, like that. And when we have that ready, we can now say that our game player X ID is the new player connection ID, correct? And same thing here. In that case, the game player O ID is the connection ID. Sorry for mixing already the game logic with only creating and joining new rooms, but since we're already at it here, I think makes sense to already set that. So now we have the game room with the ID, the name, the players list, and the actual game, where we then can also add a player, or up to 2 players actually. So now let's go back to the GameHub. There it is. And here now, so again, we have the new player, but now we can call room, try add player, new player. All right. So with that, the player is in the room, and the next thing for now would be to finally create our join room method. So I think that's enough for this lecture. So let's create, or let's join another room in the next lecture. All right, so joining a room. First public async task game room it is. And this can actually be null, as you might remember here in our lobby. We invoke, or we call this method here, invoke this thing then, join room, and this thing could be null. So here maybe we get a game room, or maybe we get nothing. So here now, join room, very important, the name, again with the room ID and also the player name, like that. And now regarding the logic, first thing we check, is this room actually available? So var room is rooms, and then first or default, where the room ID shall be the given room ID. And now we check if the room is not null. In that case, we do something, and otherwise we return null. All right. And here now, first thing again, the new player. So var new player is a new player with, again, the context connection ID and also the player name. Great. And now we try to add this player. So if room try add player, new player, then what we do is we return the room. All right. The thing now is that when you have a look at both these, the create room method and the join room method, then you would see that apart maybe from this little line here where we send all the rooms to all clients, we do not make anything SignalR related, meaning the GameHub has no idea where the players currently are. So when we create a room or join a room, then it's fine that we add them to the game room, but we do not know, or SignalR, our server, our GameHub in the end, does not really know where these players belong to if we want them to communicate with each other. All right, so we have no idea when, for instance, a player makes a move, that who should we send this move to. And to fix that, or to make our lives a lot easier, there are groups in SignalR. So as you can already see, we have clients and then all. We also have something like clients and then caller, but there's also something like groups. And to make the join room and actually also the create room method complete, we make use of these kind of groups. So let's do that next. All right, so first, real quick, let's jump back to the create room method here. And there we will also already make use of the groups, and then this method really is complete. So quick recap, we have a room ID with then a new room, and we add this new room with that room ID to our list of rooms. So far, so good. And then what we also do is we add a new player to that room. But now, again, we not only want to send the new list of rooms to all connected clients, we also want to make sure that we have a group and that group gets an ID, and we also add a player to that group, which is then the same thing in essence as a game room. And for that, again, let's make use of groups. So here now, what we do is await groups, and let me scroll a bit further down. So groups again, and maybe, yep, there it is, gets or sets the group manager. Groups is not null here. Yes, that's true. So we have to do a bit more, but the important thing is here, the iGroup manager, hub groups gets or sets the group manager. And now here, as you can see, adds a connection to the specified group with add to group async. So let's use that method. And now, as you can see, we have a connection ID. So a context connection ID. This is the player in that case. And then we can also give this thing a name. Easiest thing to do is to use the room ID, which is again a GUID, so we can make sure that there's a high probability that this is really unique. So if someone calls a room my room and then another player also creates a room called my room, then this would not really work. So here now, let's use the room ID. All right, so with that now, we have this new group with the room ID as a name, and we already add the player with this connection ID to that group. And the great thing is now, whenever someone makes a move or anything is happening in that game room, then in the GameHub, we grab the group with that room ID, and then we can inform only the players that are connected to that group. Of course, we will do that in the next lectures. And the very first step here is what happens if a user joins the room. So here we are creating the room. And now when joining, we pretty much do exactly the same thing first. So here now we say groups, add to group async. Now we already have this group, but it doesn't really matter. Anyways, here now we see that the new user and the new player with this connection ID will also be added to the room with that room ID. And then we do something else so that we really see that someone joined this room. We now send a new method to all the clients that are connected to that group. And how's that done? Well, we've already seen the clients and then all and caller, but we also have the following group. All right, and the group now, as you can see here, maybe again scroll a bit further down, you see it here. The group wants the group name. Again, in our case, it's the room ID, and as you can see here, gets a T that can be used to invoke methods on our connections in the specified group. All right, and the group name, well, it's the group name. So here now we enter the room ID again, like that, and then we call send async. You know that by now, I think. And now player joined is the new method with the new player that then will be serialized on the client. And when the new player joined, we want to do something. All right, so now we added groups and we implemented this call here, player joined, or this new method named player joined. Now, what should we do with that? Because in the lobby, there's not really a place for that. We here create a room, and if someone created a room maybe the user then already should jump into the room. Same thing with join room, right? When the user joins the room, then he or she wants to see that room and not stay in the lobby. So this information that someone joined the room here is not really interesting in the lobby. So I think it's time to add one more component to our little application here, and that would be then the room raiser component. So let's add another folder here in the client project and call this components. And here now we add a raiser component and we call this now the room. All right, with that we have our room raiser file. And as I already told you in the beginning of this course, or more or less initially, that here now I don't want to navigate the user to another page when joining. I just want to display this room here actually. So what we can do is we check if we have a room, for instance. If so, we show it. If not, we don't. So here now in the lobby, or maybe we can change the text here actually. So welcome to Blazor TicTacToe, like that. And now here we check if current room is null, then we have all the UI to create or join a room, like that. And if not, then here we display our new room component. And actually, let's grab that and add it to our imports raiser file. So here, like that. And then this thing should hopefully be available. Yep, now it is. Great. Squiggly lines are gone. So now we have to focus on this new room component and then also find a place where we can show that someone joined a room. So let's jump to that room component now, right here, and add some logic into the code block. Now we need some stuff. The first thing is this room component also needs a game room. So let's add this parameter here, parameter, and then prop, and this shall be a game room, which could be null. And we call this then current room, like that. And we again add this now to our imports raiser file, like almost like that. All right, so now we have the game room available here as well. And since we also in that game room want to be able to communicate with our GameHub, we need a hub connection. Now this is a great opportunity to use a cascading parameter. So here again, property, this is a hub connection, which can be null. Hub connection, the name, and then here instead of using another parameter, let me just use a cascading parameter, because maybe now when you would like to add more child components, we can still make use of this cascading parameter, meaning we already have this thing available in our lobby component. And now here we can add the current room, which is the current room. And here now we can add the cascading value and set the value to our hub connection. So this thing, as soon as it is initialized, is also available in our room component here. Great stuff here in Blazor, in my opinion. Now to make use of the new hub connection here, again, we will use the onInitialized async method and then add a couple of handlers actually to react to certain events in our game. And the first one here then would be the player joined event. So let's do that with the onInitialized async. So protected overrides and then onInitialized async again it is. And here now, first I check if we actually have a current room, if this thing is null, and actually if the hub connection is null, and one more thing, if our connection ID is also null. So hub connection connection ID is null, then we return, because something is not set up properly here. We add the async keyword. And now let's listen to the player joined event. So similar to the lobby, we say hub connection. Please note it is already established. Everything is running because we have our cascading parameter, the hub connection there. So now hub connection on, and there we actually get the player returned, right? Let's double check when we go back to the GameHub. Join room, create room, and here now when the player joins, we get player joined and it sends the new player. So let's go back, we get the player here, and the method name here is player joined. All right, and again we have the player here available. And what do we want to do with that? Well, what we can do is we can say current room players and then add this new player, for instance. All right, but now maybe we can add some kind of representation of that and not use the console again. So instead of writing something into the console, we can actually check if the current count of the players in that room is below 2, then we can add a text for the current user saying like waiting for another player to join. And when we have a count of 2, then this message disappears and we could display a start game button, for instance, something like that. So now up to the markup. First thing is we check if we have a current room. So if current room is not null like that, only then we do something, maybe even display again hrh3 the current room name. So current room and then the room name like that. And now here, as I said, if the current room players count is below 2, so if current room players count is below 2, then we display h4, maybe waiting for another player to join. All right, so now again we go to the lobby. We see, or should see, welcome to Blazor Tic-Tac-Toe. Blazor is still not in the dictionary of Visual Studio. This is really interesting. We have a current room, or have no current room, rather. Then we display our input fields in the button and also a list of the rooms. But when we create a new room, we should see this room, current room. And here we also see with a create room that the game room the create room method, so many rooms, method is invoked, and with that we get the current room here, and with join room we are able to join the current room, or the room that we clicked on with the button up here. All right, and then when we see the room, so here now our room component, we should see the current room name, also this text waiting for another player to join, and then as soon as the other player joins, this message here should disappear. Let's test that. Restart our application. It is rebuilding. All right, so my name is Batman. Batcave, is this the correct name? Not sure. So we see welcome to Blazor Tic-Tac-Toe. We see Batcave, the name of the room, and waiting for another player to join. So let's open this in a new tab. I opened a new tab, I ordered them next to each other, and I see a little mistake here that we did not pay attention to earlier. And when we have a look at the code here, we see when we're connecting, we set the room list here, but we have to redraw our component. So here now for that we call state has changed, and this notifies the component that its state has changed, and when applicable this will cause the component to be re-rendered. So let's call that here, and unfortunately we have to restart the application again. So now we open this again, bad man, bad cave. We create the room. No, it's here, but now when we also reload that, we also see the room. And now again, we want to join, and this message here, waiting for another player to join, should disappear. And it didn't work because again, state has changed, wasn't called. So pay attention there. So here, let me just copy that, and we go to the room raiser, player joined, we add this, state has changed, and now let's try this one last time. Batman, bad cave, create. Now here Spider-Man will join the bad cave, and you see the message is gone. All right, so you see this kind of communication worked. And regarding redrawing or re-rendering the components, you have to add state has changed. This is really important, and it's somehow fortunate that this happened now, because I, of course, wanted to show you how important it is to call this method. So again, player joined. This worked in general. We can create rooms, we can join a room. We now see if another player or when another player joined our room. But now, the next step actually is to add logic to our game. So as you can see here, we have the room, the lobby, the game room here, the players here, but the TicTacToeGame here, well, there's not a lot in there, right? So we have to fill this now, add way more to this class. And then with that, we will also add more events here, more UI, of course, in the room raiser component. And then also in the GameHub, we will add more methods in the end to, well, make this thing a real game. So let's do that next. Now, to move on with the actual game, what we might do next, or maybe should do next, is actually implementing more here into the, or implementing more in the TicTacToe game itself. So for that, we need a couple more properties and maybe already the first one or two methods for the game, because the next step would be, in my opinion, to, well, start the game somehow. And when the game is started, then we should maybe see the TicTacToe board there. All right, so let's do that. So we already have the IDs for player X and O. The next thing now shall be the current player ID, so whose turn it is currently. So again, a property with a nullable string, and this is then the current player ID. And then the next thing is the current player symbol. So whoever is the current player, this player then has the symbol X or O. And when the player makes a move, then we want to set the field in that board with X or O. So this is why we need that information. So again, a string, and this is not nullable actually. So next would be this thing here, the current player symbol. And this now actually is not a property, because here now we set this directly, player ID. If the player ID is the player X ID, then in that case we set X, otherwise we set this to O. All right, so current player symbol, we just check if the current player is a player X ID. In that case, we know that X is the current symbol. If not, it's O. Then the next part should be, well, maybe let's add the board at the last, because I already see the board here as a list of strings, but I have to explain this a bit more. Easier are some flags. So we have game started. So game started in the beginning is false. Pretty similar is not game paused in telecode, not game paused. It is bool and then game over, which is also false in the beginning. Then is draw is another flag. So we will check if we have a draw, and if you know the game, then you know that this might happen quite often. Then I have a string for the winner. So I just want to decide if X or O is the winner. And yes, I know you can definitely improve all that with states and an enum maybe, So there's definitely there are more ways to improve this. But again, this is a simple version, and I wanted to show you all the SignalR stuff. I think this is really nice. Now the board. I already told you about the board. So first I had a two-dimensional array there, but the problem with the two-dimensional array is that you cannot serialize it with SignalR via WebSockets. So what you can do instead is you have a list of strings, and this then will be our board. So 9 fields in the end, right? 3 times 3. So again, this is our board, and we can initialize this thing as a new list of strings, and the size is 3. All right. Okay. So this is then our board. Then we have a constructor CTOR. Nope. CTOR, like that. And here we call a method called initialize board. All right. So private void actually initialize board. And we call this method here in the constructor. So initialize board it is. And here now we clear our board. All right. So removes all elements from the lists. And after that, in a for loop, we set every value to string empty. All right. So here now for int I, yep, that's it in IntelliCode. This is nice. And here we say var row is a new list of strings with, again, the size 3. And then for j is 0, j smaller than 3, j plus plus. And then here we say row add string empty, forgot the integer, like that, and board add row. All right, so again, we have this list of lists of strings, and each row is this part here. So each row, a list of strings, size 3, and we add a string empty to every row, so to every column in the end, so that in the end we have a list of 3 lists of strings. I hope you get the idea. And with that, the whole field is empty. Okay. And then the last method for now is start the game. So this now is a public void start game method. All right. And here we set the current player ID to the player X ID. So meaning the player with the X symbol starts. Remember, the player X ID and the player O ID should already be set when creating the room. So here in the game room, we see the list of players, we see the TicTacToeGame, and here then we say, when we add a player, that the player X ID is this connection ID and player O ID is this connection ID, and all that is still held in the GameHub here. So we have the list of rooms, a room has a game, and the game then has this set. So this is not stateless at all. So we always have this state available, otherwise this would not work. So here now in the TicTacToeGame, the only thing I want to set is the current player ID, because I also want to use this start game method to reset a game. So if a game is over, then we reset some flags here. And for instance, this is the game started flag. This is true, but resetting is a game over, which is then again false. Winner is again string empty, and is draw is also false. And also we have to initialize the board again. So current player is set to X, game started is true, game over is false, winner is empty, is draw is false, and initialize the board. Okay, so far the logic for now, I'd say. And the next step then would be to really start the game and see a result on the client and use the GameHub again to start the game finally. So let's do that next. All right, first in our room, let's add another method to start the game. So async task it is. We just call this start game. And in here, first let's check if we have a hub connection. So hub connection, if this thing is null or the current room is null, then we return. But if we have this available, then we say hub connection invoke async, and then the method name is start game. And here now we provide the current room ID, actually room. There it is, room ID, like that. So start game, hub connection, invoke async, start game. And now the counterpart on the game hub. So here we add another method, public async task, start game. Again, name is very important here, has to be the same. So start game, again, we check if the room is available. So in our rooms, first or default, forgot the ID here, with the string room ID. And then here, when the room ID is or equals the given room ID, we found our room. And then if room is not null, we say room game and then start game, our new start game method in the TicTacToeGame. And now here again we make use of the groups. So await clients group with the given room ID. Here now we send async. And now the thing is that I want to provide the complete room. Of course, there are ways to improve this. Again, maybe you just send a certain difference, whatever it is. But my idea here for this challenge was that, again, let's keep it as simple as possible. And also here then, this would mean that the GameHub always decides what's true in the end. So the GameHub will send the room with every update, meaning when one player makes a move, we make a change on the server and the server then returns the complete new room. So we don't have to think about what can be a difference, how do we update all the clients and so on. So not like I don't know, multiplayer shooter game, for instance, where you really just sometimes just send the coordinates of the players, and if a player has shot something, whatever it is, so there it's really crucial to send as few information as possible to make the whole game still running very, very fast. But you know, I think, you know, it's in the end turn-based game, right? So here now we can send the complete room, and I think the internet connection is not a problem nowadays. So here we just send the complete room and we're done with that. And by the way, again, I really love here already that I said turn-based game, so you can really build a much bigger thing out of that. I just love the idea of that. You know, I love video games, so that's really my thing. Anyways, what we could do here is we could send now a method called GameStarted, for instance, right? But you will see that we will have way more events here, let's say, where we will then send the complete room to the player, making a move, checking if we have a winner. So we do not really need a handler for each of these events. Of course, you can do so if you want to provide specific messages, something like that. But let's, again, keep things simple. And what we can do now is simply send async update game or game updated, something like that. And when the client then gets this, then we just override our current room and then see the difference and the results. All right. So this is now my idea here. So with the start game method, we check if we have the room. If the room is not null, we start the game. With the start game method, we set certain flags, and then we send the method update game to the method with the method name update game. Send this information to all connected clients of that room. So now back to our room component, we have to add the handler for that. So down here, additionally to player joined, we say now hub connection like that on, and then we get a game room here, and here it is update game with the new, let's call it server room, because this is the room on the server. And here now what we do is we simply say our current room now is the server room, and we call state has changed. All right, so with that we should see all the changes on the screen when we add the corresponding markup here. And I think this is what we definitely should do next, meaning adding more logic here, asking or checking more cases, and of course in the end also rendering or drawing the actual board of the TicTacToe game. So let's do that next. All right, so now before we can start the game, we need a button and maybe add an information for the player who has joined the room, because here we now see waiting for another player to join. But what is now with the player who actually joined our room? The first player who created the room would not see this message anymore. This player should see the button to start this game now. And the other player should see a message which says waiting for the other player to start the game maybe. So let's implement that. It's not that magical actually. So if first we check current room, game, current room, game, and then game started is false. Then we check if the current room game player X ID is actually my ID. So we have to add another variable here actually. And the last thing I want to check is if the current room players count is 2, like that. If this is the case, then we display waiting for the other player to start the game. All right. Now my player ID, how do we set that? Well, right at the beginning here, we can actually say my player ID is hub connection ID. That's nice. And of course we add it here. So private string can be null in the end, in the beginning, and then my player ID. All right. So with that, fix a little typo here. The next thing would be the start game button. Now we have the method down here, right? Start game. And for that button, we check if, again, the current room game started is false, or now we can also make use of the game over state. So, or if current room game is game over, like that. And then the next thing we have to check is not like that actually. Current room game player X ID again is my player ID, and next then is current room players count is 2 again. And if all that is the case, then we say button on click start game, and start game for the text here. All right, this is the button now. And now when the game is started, we show something else, and that would be actually the board, right? But maybe we can start with some text and then add the board afterwards. So now here we ask if current room game started. So if this is the case, first let's display something like its current room, and then game, and then current player symbol turn. So we will see that it is the turn for x. It's x's turn or o's turn currently. And then I also want to display the player names. I think this is fun to see who's currently playing. So in a little span here, we just say currently playing, and then here we see current room players 0, come on, 0 name, and this player then would be X, and then pretty similar would then be, or maybe a comma, would be player 1 name, which is then the O symbol. So here we have O, and here the capital X. All right. I think this is enough for now, because the next part would be the board, drawing the board, and actually then already making moves. So let's test the current state, but first let me double check real quick what we actually changed, because I think it was a lot. So here we have the GameHub. That's not that much. We have the start game method, clients group room ID, send async update game. In our room we have lots and lots of checks, but this, well, of course could be the case that we have a typo here, some tiny errors, maybe tiny mistakes, but nothing that should break the application. But here we have a loop, and when I have loops, I'm afraid. And yeah, see, this is what I mean. I, and then here J, I, J. So let's fix that real quick. And hopefully now we shouldn't have an endless loop. So let's start the game. All right, as you've seen, I closed it earlier. All right, there we are. So Batman, Batcave, create the room, waiting for another player to join. And now here we add Spider-Man, we join the Batcave. Batcave, waiting for the other player to start the game. Now we hit start game. Nice. All right, so we have the Batcave. It's X's turn. That's correct. And currently playing is Batman and Spider-Man. Batman is X, Spider-Man is O. Perfect. So this works so far. This is already amazing. And now the next part is drawing the board, and then the whole logic regarding making moves and deciding who is the winner. So let's do that next. All right, so now we are back in our Room Razor component. And before we draw the board, we need new methods so that we have them available already. And these are actually checking if it's currently our turn and making a move. So let's add them real quick. We have private async task make move method. There we will provide the current row and the current column. Regarding the body, we will deal with that later. And then also private bool is my turn. And here then, of course, we will check if it's currently our turn. We can implement that already, because this is not a lot actually. So if we have a current room, if it is not null, and then we return true if my player ID equals current room game current player ID. So yeah, this, well, if we don't have a room, then we also return false. So this is the is my turn method. Regarding the make move method, this is another call. I call it call, but it's invoking another method in the GameHub. But now first let's draw the board, because this is a tiny bit more complicated. So this will be a table. all right? And in this table now, we also have to add some CSS, but let's do that in a minute. We again call a for loop. So for int row is 0, then again 3. Maybe I should have used these variables as well in the initialize board method. And then for each row plus plus, here we say a table row, and in that table row then we say for int column, don't forget the at, int column 0, column smaller than 3, column plus plus, we say the following. And this is something where you really have to pay attention, because we add a table cell here and we use the onClick event to call the now make move function. So make move row and column, right? And here now we add the following for the content. This is the current room game, and then from the board we choose a row and column. Now I could demonstrate this, but I can already tell you that this would not work. The problem is this expression here. So why is that? We have a loop here, all right, and row and column will be incremented until they're 3, both of them. And in here we're using a lambda expression, and the problem is that lambda expressions capture the variables here by reference and not by their value. So again, when you do it like that, then in that lambda expression we have a reference to the row and the column, to the current value of these variables. And since we're using a reference here, then in the end we will always call make move with the same value, which would be 3 in that case. Now to fix that, we can create a local copy of them, all right? So to do that, simply say var r for the row and c for the column. And then here we also use r and c, and also r and c. And with that copy, we will really use the value here. Otherwise, we would still use the reference. And with that, even though the values are incremented, since we're using the reference, then here we will still use the last value. I hope you get the idea here. If you want to see this in action, just remove that, use row and col, and then you will see that it does not have the effect that you might want it to have. All right, so this is now the board. And since we're now already added, let's add some more cases here. We have the table, but we can also check if it's currently our turn. If not, we also display a message. Please wait for the other player to make a turn. So add if, and then is not my turn, and current room game is not game over, then we display something like please wait for the other player to make a move. All right, and the last ones would be actually displaying game over states. So maybe let's copy these and then maybe add them here. So here now we first check if actually only if the game is over. So current room game over, and current room game is not draw. Then we say game over, winner is then current room game winner, almost. And the other case, we have a draw. So is draw, we just display draw like that. Okay. All right, now let's test that so far. We restart the application, and then the last steps would actually be to make the moves. So application is restarting. We are here and here. Let's try that one more time. Batman, Bat Cave. We create the room. Spider-Man is joining the Bat Cave. We start the game and we don't see the board. Now why is that? I have a feeling that I forgot the CSS. So real quick, let's open that up. Now we add another file here, new item, room Blazor CSS. And here I will just copy some CSS. So that's what we need, because otherwise it's a bit tedious. Sorry about that, but we have a width and a height, a border, text align, a cursor, font size, and vertical align. And now here we simply set the class. Where's our board? There it is. Class is now TicTacToe. Save that. And let's try that one more time. All right, restarting again. Batman, Bat Cave. Create room. Spider-Man, join the room, start the game. And there's our board. All right, and now here you see we have the cursor icon and we could actually click, right? But we do not react to that click. So the make move function is not doing anything so far. So let's cover that in the next lecture. All right, so in essence, only making a move is left as our last feature, let's call it that way. And then afterwards, also we want to check if we have a winner or if it's a draw. So these two things have to be implemented. Now for that, we have to make changes in the room eraser. Here we have to implement the make move method. Then also we need the counterpart in our GameHub, and then also a bit more logic here in the TicTacToeGame. So I would say we start with the room eraser file and implement the make move method here, because here we in essence only again invoke a method of our hub. So we call await, and then again our hub connection, invoke async, and here we will call this thing make move. And here now we provide the current room ID, and maybe put this into a new line here, the room ID, then also the row and the column, and the last thing shall be my player ID. But let's also check if we are actually allowed to do this. So we check if is my turn, then also if the current room is not null. Additionally, we want to know if the current room game has actually been started. Similar, we ask if it's not game over, because we don't want to make any moves when the game has not been started yet, or the game's over, like that. And the last thing, the hub connection. So we also check if the hub connection is not null. So only then we want to make our move. All right. Now, before we implement the counterpart here in our GameHub CS file, we need more logic in the TicTacToeGame. As you can see here, we have the start game method, initialize board method, but again, not the make move method. And additionally, we also want to toggle the player after making a move. So let's implement these two methods, toggle the player and making the move first in the TicTacToeGame. And then afterwards, we can use these methods in our GameHub. So, first toggle player. So void, public void, actually, public void toggle player. And here we say current player ID is now with the ternary operator. We check if the current player ID is the player X ID, and then the new current player ID is the player O ID, and otherwise again player X. That's toggling the player. And now making the move, public bool, because we want to return if we are able to make the move or not. And then here we provide the row, again the column, and the player ID. And before we are allowed to actually make the move, we again have to check a couple of things. So first we check if the player ID is not the current player ID. If this is not the case, we return false. But additionally, again, there are a couple more things. So if now, and this is about the board, if the row provided is 0, or the column, or the row is greater or equal 3, then we check if the column is below 0, or exactly column greater or equal 3. And the last thing, we check if the board, row, and column actually already has a value, so it's not empty. If this is the case, then we return false. All right, so we have to make sure that we are actually the one that's turn it is currently. That's done with the player ID. Then we want to check the borders of the board, and we want to see if something is already set in the current cell of the board, or in the current cell the user has clicked. And if everything is fine, then we just say board row column is now the current player symbol. After that, we toggle the player and we return true. All right, now we've got toggling the player and moving or making a move. Additionally, after each move, the GameHub wants to check if we now have a winner or if we have a draw. Now these methods are tedious, so please bear with me. I just copy and paste them. So let me just select them here in on my other screen and paste them now here, and let's just talk about them. So first, the check winner method, the thing that will be returned is simply the player symbol. All right, so first we check the rows and the columns, and as you can see here, what we want to do is in a loop we go over each row and check if the specific cells have the exact same value, and same thing also for the columns. So here we are in the same row, right? And with the 0, 1, and 2, we check the columns, and then the other way around, we check the rows 0, 1, and 2, and then the different columns. So horizontally and vertically, we're checking if the symbols are the same. If they are, we have a winner actually, and return then the symbol. Same thing states here for the diagonals. So board 0, 0, and so if we have a value here in 0, 0, then we compare 0, 0 with 1, 1, and so on. And same thing for the other diagonal. So again, 0, 2, and I think you get the idea by now. If we don't have a winner, then we simply return an empty string. And regarding the draw, here what we do is we check if all cells in the end of the board have a value. If that's the case and we have not a winner, well, then it's a draw. And this happens quite often in tic-tac-toe. All right, so these are now the methods we need in our tic-tac-toe game. And now we can go to the GameHub and here add our make move method. So again, a public async task make move. And again, we get the room ID, the row, the column, and the player ID. And now here, first again, we want to get the room. So our room is first or default, where the room ID equals the given room ID. And then we check, is our room actually available? And we already make the move and check if we were able to make the move. So if true is returned, so room game make move, with the provided arguments. If this is possible, then we do the following. First, we check if we have a winner. So room game winner is now room game check winner. Most of the time this will be an empty string. And then room game is draw. And here we say room game check, not winner, check draw this time. That's the one. And now we check for the actual values. So if string is null or empty, or is not null or empty regarding the winner, so room game and then winner, or the room game is draw, then we set the game over state to true, not as draw, game over actually, and this is now true. All right, and after that, in any case, we send the update game method to the clients connected to our group. So await clients group and then room ID send async update game with our new or updated room. So again, quick recap. This is our make move method. We get the room ID, the row, the column, and the player ID. We try to get this room, format everything, and then we check if the room is null or not, and if we were able to make the move. If this is the case, then we try to get the winner. If there is a winner, we also check if we have a draw state. If this is the case, either we have a winner or the game is draw, then we set game over to true. But in any case, we send the update game method to the connected clients of that group or that room. And again, told you that earlier, but with that update game method name, we are able to only send one single update here. I had another implementation where I had the method name game over or game started, something like that. But this is not really necessary when we just have update game and then send the complete room every single time. Again, this is maybe not the ideal way, but I think in this scenario, this totally works. It's not a real-time action multiplayer game. So with these turn-based games, I think this is totally fine. So I would say we test this, run the application. Again, let's try it with a Batman and the Bat Cave. We create the room. Spider-Man joins the Bat Cave. We start the game. And as you can see now, it's X's turn. So we see Batman and Spider-Man. Batman is X, so we hit X here. Now I can't click anywhere, but Spider-Man can, for instance, there. Isn't it nice? And that was just selected because I clicked there. And now I set the X here, maybe an O there, another X. And I'm totally missing that Batman is about to win. And there we have it, game over, winner is X. Still saying that it's O's turn, so this is something that we can, of course, also add to our if statement. Maybe I'll do that before I'm pushing this repository to fix that. But also we see that on both screens, actually, we see that the winner is X, and we can again start the game, and it's again X's turn. So I cannot click here as Spider-Man, but Batman can. And now let's try to let Spider-Man win, and we see winner is, again, it's X's turn, so I really have to remove that. And I cannot click anywhere. And now let's try the draw. And this is the hardest one when you're doing this by yourself. All right, now here, and we've got O there. See, totally missed that. So again, we have, okay, no, this is wrong, actually. This is not correct. It says that there's a draw, but of course, before we had a winner. So I have to check this first if we actually have a winner. So let's fix that real quick. Actually, we can just check here if winner is null or empty. So here now, if string is null or empty regarding the room game winner. So only if this thing is null or empty, then whatever the check draw method says is true. All right, so now let's save that, try this one more time. All right, we start the game and let's try to reproduce our last moves. So we had this one, there, and then the X was here, here, and here. Yeah, and now it's true. We have game over, winner is X. Try that one more time with O. That maybe, all right, winner is O. And now let's try to get a draw here. That's, and then here, here, and here. And now it's correctly saying we have a draw. All right, that's it. I hope you liked this challenge. I hope you learned something. Tell me that in the community. Whatever you want to see here, or if you have any questions, please tell me them as well. And it would be awesome to see your versions of TicTacToe. Maybe you changed the design. I know that we can do a lot more here. We can, of course, add more CSS, maybe Tailwind for a better look. We can also add a leaderboard, meaning with every game we can count the victories and the defeats of each user and display a little table below. Maybe would be nice, but I think now with these foundations in SignalR, with the groups now, you can, or you know how to do that. So you see how to store the current state actually in the GameHub, and then you can send the current wins and defeats again to all the players, for instance, that are currently connected to the group or the room. So again, thank you very much for watching the challenge. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the community. And I hope you also have fun with these challenges here. See you next time. Hey there, one little bonus here. I changed the design a little bit, so I added Tailwind CSS, as you can see here, and well, added some more styling, so it looks a tiny bit better, in my opinion, at least. So let's just have another look with our example players here. So Batman in his bed cave, creating a room. We see the room now here. So we see we can either create a new room or we join a room below. So now I enter Spider-Man here, enter the bed cave. Again, we see waiting for the other player to start the game. We see the room name, then we can hit start game. And let me remove my face here so that you can see both boards. As you can see, please wait for the other player to make a move. So Batman's turn, then Spider-Man, and so on. Now let's win this thing, and we can see game over, winner is X, and the creator of the room can again start the game for another round. All right, so now let's have a look in Visual Studio. There it is, and just check out the changes. And as you can see, it's not really a lot. So the main thing, or the first thing you should do, I haven't really installed Tailwind. I just used the CDN here to use the minified CSS file of the latest Tailwind CSS version. And then with that, I changed the main layout a little bit. As you can see here, I removed the outer div, right? And then added some classes to the main tag, and then also another div here for the body. In essence, it's background color, text color, and also some spacings, padding, margins, and so on. So this is the main layout. And then we go to the lobby. There I made also changes to the text. So the headers are a bit different. Of course, input and buttons. Also down here, instead of join room, now you see the room name, which is then the text of the button. And I think that's it for the lobby. And then last thing, the room. I made the border a little bit bigger. As you can see here, width and height of the cells is now 100 pixels. Font size is also bigger. And also here, regarding the room, we see the header is a bit different, and also the start game button. And here to center the table, I added a div around that table to center it with a flex grid in essence, and also added a break here so the button and the text are in two different lines and not next to each other. So that's pretty much it. I will check this in. You can get the code, I think, here in this lecture, because this is the last one of this challenge, and maybe I will also add it to the first lecture so you definitely see the code. I think a GitHub repository access is not necessary here. It's only one branch, only the master branch. So just grab the zip file so that you have the code and can build your own turn-based game if you want. So that's it. Just a little bonus here. Tailwind CSS to get a little bit better looks for our TicTacToe game.